Johnny Carson's fingers were trembling. The date was November 14, 1985. Inside NBC's Burbank studios, The Tonight Show was broadcasting live. Nearly 300 people filled the studio seats. Across America, millions were watching from their homes. And Johnny Carson, the man who had made the nation laugh for more than 2 decades, was suddenly unable to speak. The color drained from his face. His eyes glistened. The cue cards shook in his hands like paper caught in heavy wind. Ed McMahon slowly rose from his chair. The band stopped mid-note. The director's voice buzzed urgently through Johnny's earpiece. "Johnny, you're on. Say something." But Johnny wasn't listening. His eyes were locked on a small figure near the stage, a little girl, no older than 7. She wore a loose blue dress, clearly too big for her. A man's wristwatch dangled awkwardly from her tiny arm. In her hands was a folded piece of paper, clutched as if it carried the weight of the world. She had just whispered something to him. And whatever it was, it shattered him. The audience sat frozen. No one understood what was happening. This was Johnny Carson, the unshakable king of late-night television. A man who had handled thousands of live shows without ever losing control. Yet now, tears rolled freely down his face. 30 seconds of silence filled the studio. An eternity in live television. The longest pause The Tonight Show had ever seen. What could a 7-year-old child possibly say to bring Johnny Carson to his knees on live TV? The answer would change how the world remembered him forever. Her name was Emily Warren. She was 7 years old, with brown hair and eyes far too serious for someone so young. 8 weeks before that night, Emily's life had fallen apart. Her father, Michael Warren, was just 34 years old. He worked as a janitor at a high school in Pasadena, California. He wasn't wealthy. He wasn't famous. But to Emily, he was the greatest father in the world. Michael had one true joy in life, The Tonight Show with Johnny Carson. Every night, without fail, he would sit in his worn recliner, Emily curled up on his lap, watching Johnny's monologue. He memorized every joke, every pause, every expression. In their small backyard, he practiced Johnny's famous golf swing. At dinner, he repeated punchlines until Emily's mother laughed despite herself. One night Emily asked, "Daddy, why do you love Johnny Carson so much?" Michael smiled and said, "Because when I watch him, life doesn't feel so heavy. He reminds me that no matter how hard things get, there's always something worth smiling about." 3 months before tragedy struck, Michael did something unexpected. He entered a radio contest, calling in more than 200 times in one weekend. And somehow, he won 2 front-row tickets to a live taping of The Tonight Show. Michael screamed so loudly the neighbors rushed over. He lifted Emily and spun her through the kitchen. "We're going to see Johnny, baby girl. Front row. Close enough to see him breathe." Emily had never seen her father so happy. Then September 15th changed everything. A drunk driver ran a red light on Colorado Boulevard. Michael's car was hit on the driver's side. He was pronounced dead at the scene. Emily was supposed to be with him that day. A sudden cold kept her home. She never got to say goodbye. But Michael left something behind. The tickets. Still tucked in his nightstand. 2 front-row seats. One printed with Michael's name. They were non-refundable. Non-transferable. Emily's mother, Karen, didn't know what to do. Throwing them away felt like erasing the last dream her husband ever had. But going without him felt unbearable. Emily made the choice. "I want to go, Mommy." Karen hesitated. "It might be too painful." Emily shook her head. "Daddy wanted to take me. If we don't go, his dream disappears too. I don't want that." Karen broke down in tears. Her 7-year-old understood something most adults couldn't. They would go. The night before the taping, Karen found Emily sitting quietly on her bed, carefully writing on a piece of paper. "What are you doing, sweetheart?" Emily folded the paper and tucked it away. "It's for Johnny." Karen assumed it was a drawing or a simple thank you note. She didn't ask more. She would later wish she had. On the night of the show, Emily insisted on wearing her father's watch. It was far too big. Tape held it in place. But she refused to leave without it. The drive to Burbank was silent. Emily stared out the window, gripping that folded paper, watching city lights her father would never see again. Inside NBC studios, the atmosphere buzzed with excitement. Laughter. Anticipation. The most coveted ticket in television. Emily didn't smile. They took their seats, front row. Michael's seat sat empty beside them. Karen whispered, "Daddy's watching from heaven." Emily nodded. "I know. That's why I have to give Johnny the letter." Karen froze. "What letter?" Before she could ask more, the lights dimmed. The band began to play. Ed McMahon's voice echoed. "Here's Johnny." Johnny Carson walked onto the stage. Emily stood, not to clap, not to cheer, but ready to deliver her father's final words. The monologue was flawless. Johnny was sharp, confident, unstoppable. The audience roared with laughter. Yet Johnny kept glancing toward the front row. The little girl wasn't laughing. She wasn't smiling. She was watching him, intensely. The oversized watch. The folded paper. The empty seat beside her. Something felt wrong. Johnny finished his last joke. The audience erupted. In the brief silence that followed, Emily stood up. Karen reached for her. "Emily, no." But Emily was already walking toward the stage. Security stepped forward. Johnny raised his hand. "Let her come." The studio fell silent. Johnny knelt down in front of her. "What's your name, sweetheart?" "Emily," she said softly. "My daddy loved you, Mr. Carson." Johnny smiled gently. "That means a lot. Is your daddy here tonight?" Emily shook her head. "He died 2 months ago." A gasp swept the audience. Johnny's smile faded. "I'm so sorry." She held out the folded paper. "He wrote you a letter. Before he won the tickets. He wanted you to read it if he ever met you." Johnny took the paper. And began to read. At first, he remained composed. Then his expression changed. His jaw tightened. His hands began to shake. Ed McMahon stood up. "Johnny." The director's voice crackled again. "You're live." Johnny couldn't answer. Tears filled his eyes. The man who had never broken on live television was crying. Emily stepped closer and gently touched his hand. "Daddy said you'd understand." Johnny looked at her, voice barely audible. "I had no idea." He took a deep breath and faced the audience. "I need to tell you who this little girl's father really was." He read from the letter. "Mr. Carson, you don't know me, but you saved my life when I was 12. Johnny explained how Michael lost his father, how laughter brought him back from grief, how Johnny's show became his lifeline for 30 years. Then the line that broke him completely. "I have cancer. I don't have much time. But I'm not afraid. Because you taught me that even in the darkest moments, laughter keeps us alive." Johnny lowered the letter. He knelt beside Emily. "Your father spent his life learning how to smile through pain. Now he wants you to do the same." Emily whispered, "He really loved you." Johnny nodded. "And I love him too." Johnny reached into his pocket and removed his signature handkerchief. "I want you to have this," he said, placing it in Emily's hands. "Whenever you miss your dad, remember that someone out there is trying to make people smile, just like he did." The audience rose in a standing ovation. Later that night, backstage, Johnny gave Emily a signed photo and made a promise, one joke every year on her birthday, dedicated to her father. He kept that promise until retirement. Today, Emily Warren is a grief counselor, helping children who've lost parents. On her wall hangs Johnny's handkerchief, her father's letter, and that watch, which finally fits. And every year, she remembers one truth her father believed with all his heart. Laughter doesn't erase pain. It helps us survive it.